Hello and welcome back to the Fighting Talk 2 channel with myself, Mr. Fighting Talk, joined by the eloquent analyst. How we doing, my friend? All good?
Doing good, man. Tired. Went through a full work day. It's weird being back at work during these lockdown times, but nice to be in a routine again. But yeah,
Yeah,
tired, but I'm feeling good, man.
I
You?
can't wait. I can't wait to get back into a routine, honestly. And then the UFC just keep putting on card after card after card and banger after banger. This weekend's a little bit quieter on the forefront of like big names, but there's some real sneaky fights on this weekend. Obviously, the main event, Kevin Holland versus Derek Brunson, is going to be an absolute banger. The trailblazer himself, coming off of 5 wins, I believe it was last year, right? Who absolutely
Yeah.
blew up. A guy that Dana White didn't even want in the UFC because he's talked too much and stuff like that. And now he's ranked number 10, fighting ranked number 7. And with the new news of Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa, obviously Paulo Costa being out with severe flu, whatever that means, could this potentially be a setup fight for either one of these guys if they go out there? Kevin Holland is, a knockout master, it would seem, from his performances last year. But if he can go out there and get a knockout and a quick turnaround for this weekend, could we see him facing Robert Whittaker in a couple of weeks? What do you think on that?
I think first thing I'll say is I wouldn't say that Kevin Holland is a knockout artist. I would say he's got a lot of knockouts, but I would say that where his niche lies is he is a fantastic counter striker. And it seems that whenever these guys kind of wade into the punches, that Kevin Holland is able to slip out the way and hit them with big shots, man. So big fight for Kevin Holland against a big challenge, Derek Brunson. In terms of the Costa Robert Whittaker situation and where this kind of leads this fight, I would want to see Rob go for that title fight now. Izzy's coming off of the loss to Blachowicz. And I want to see him, maybe take a little bit of time and then come back and fight Whittaker. I don't know when Whittaker was looking to have a fight. I know he kind of likes to set his schedule around his family life and things like that. So it's very important for him to make sure that he is able to be there for them. And if that's the case and Robert does end up going for the title shot, then I would say that this makes this fight, either a number 1 contender or at least one fight away. For me, when I look at Kevin Holland, I would say that he is one of the few tests that Izzy hasn't had in the cage in terms of just a fresh name in general. Obviously, he's fought Brunson and beaten Brunson already. So if Brunson wins here, then I would say maybe Brunson's maybe 1 or 2 away, maybe one bigger name away or 2 top 5 guys away from really securing that title shot.
Yeah.
Kevin Holland with a big win here could see himself in a title picture fight, or at least against number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah, so maybe someone like Kelvin Gastelum, but obviously Robert Whittaker is going to need an opponent when I think the fight's booked for April. That's obviously his opponent's obviously dropped off, so maybe Kelvin Gastelum can jump into that because I think that'd be a good battle between these guys.
Maybe this fight finishes very, very quickly with no damage and they turn around and fight Robert Whittaker. I would love to see that too, even if it's Kevin Holland or Derek Brunson, because I think that will kind of solidify Derek Brunson up there, right? Especially if he beats Robert Whittaker, who's already got a loss against. If he can go in there, beat Kevin Holland convincingly or quickly, turn around and fight Whittaker and beat Whittaker, then that propels him right into that title shot. Does he beat Whittaker? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think Robert Whittaker is one of the best middleweights on the planet. And I think Derek Brunson, though he's made a lot of improvements in the last year, I will give him that. The Edmund Shabazian fight was incredible to watch. He made so many adjustments, so many improvements. His cardio was fantastic. That's one of the things about Derek Brunson. He gasses himself out in the first half of the first round, because he's throwing everything in the kitchen sink. It's great to see him being a little bit more disciplined in these fights and coming out and having a stronger game plan. Shout out Sanford MMA. I'm sure that is one of the catalysts for allowing him to fight that way. I don't know if I answered the question there, but yeah, I want to see the winner of this fight. If they can, get out relatively unscathed, I'd love to see them turn around and fight Whittaker. I think that's a big power move as well. And I think that's what the fans appreciate and love. They love a fighter that comes out and can quickly turn around, take another fight, win that fight. I think that's why Kevin Holland was so beloved last year, right? He turned around and fought 5 times in 1 year. That's incredible. And I think he had really good performances in all those fights. And that's the other key part of getting the fans to love you. It's activeness in fighting, but also having spectacular performances. 2 boxes that Kevin Holland's tick. Let's see if he's able to do that against Derek Brunson, one of the best in that middleweight division.
Absolutely, man. But then obviously Izzy's just come off a loss to Blachowicz, and he didn't take too much damage. And he said after the fight, I didn't take too much damage. So he could potentially get that fight with Whittaker, because that was going to be for the next title shot anyway. So he could just fast forward that whole process. Paulo Costa's never going to get a belt, you know. It's a hard pill to swallow. I do not think he's ever going to get a belt. The top echelon of the division is an echelon above him. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I don't think he's in there with these guys. He's got a very, very padded record as well. Like, he's beaten some cool guys. I get that, but guys that were on the back end of their careers, you know?
And he wasn't the smartest of fighters either. He went in against Uriah Hall and was getting jabbed to the face. He ultimately got the win in the end, but that's just due to power and size, I would say, more so than fight IQ. When he fought Johnny Hendricks, Hendricks was hitting him with a lot of jabs to the face. Same with Uriah Hall, a lot of jabs to the face. So I would say his IQ isn't there, but man, isn't he a powerful guy, man? I think 1 or 2 strikes from him, obviously, with the right, in the right situation, can put anyone down. But you can say that about any of these guys, right? If you take a shot to the chin at the right angle at the right moment, you're going to get knocked out. And I think Paulo has really, and I think you're right. He is. I'd hesitate to call it a padded record, but I would say that he has fought a lot of people on the back end of their careers. As a stepping stone
Romero as well.
Yoel Romero. But Yoel Romero for me is always scary no matter what. But I do agree, he's in his 40s now. He hasn't won a fight in quite a few, no, I wouldn't say quite a few years, but it's been a while since he's won a fight here.
Mm-hmm.
Last one I can really remember him winning was the Rock Hold knockout, as far as I can remember. But I don't know. Yeah, was that the last one?
Yeah, I think it might be.
So yeah, it's been a long time since Yoel's won a fight here. So yeah, I agree. I think he has had somewhat of a padded record, even though I just said I didn't want to say that. I'm going to say that. Now just thinking about the people he's fought. And I think Rob gives him work. I think whenever they do end up rebooking that fight, I think Rob's just so diverse in his striking. I think he's got excellent takedown defense. He's got excellent takedowns as well. And I think being as well-rounded as Rob Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, as we love to call him, I think he's tough for anyone in middleweight. And eventually, I'd love to see him go up to light heavyweight and challenge a couple of these guys as well. I think he's a big guy.
Again, I think he was massive. He was fighting at 205 before he entered the UFC.
Wow, so that's even better, right? And he was fighting at welterweight, right? Before he went up, so he was fighting at welterweight. Then he went up to 185
I believe so.
And started doing work there. But I'd love to see him. He was massive. I have no idea how he made welterweight. That's like Anthony Rumble Johnson levels of making welterweight, and went up to 185 and has looked incredible, against a lot of these guys. And I think it's kind of the same thing with Izzy, right? Izzy didn't go up to be a massive light heavyweight. I think he can be a slightly smaller light heavyweight, and his agility, we were talking about smart IQ in the octagon, right? Like with Costa, right? Robert Whittaker is one of the smartest guys out there. He's so tactical. He plods in a way that is different to everybody else. He's one of those guys, you could look at a outline of Robert Whittaker and you just know immediately from his stance, okay, that's Robert Whittaker fighting. And I think that's what makes him stand out from the rest of the guys in the middleweight division. And eventually I'd love to see him go up to light heavyweight. Maybe, after the Romero fights where he was getting hit with that truck of a right hand, I'm sure he doesn't want to go up and get that work from those big ass dudes at light heavyweight. But yeah, that's me personally. I'm me being greedy.
Yeah, no, completely. And you always want to see these guys go up in division or down in division or go somewhere for some reason. But just to stay on Robert Whittaker, he looked fantastic against Till. Till's obviously got very good hands, very good wrestling and stuff like that. And I thought he had a very, very good game plan out there. And it's one of my favorite fights to watch, watching it back. It was a proper chess match between these two guys. They were trading blow for blow, and Rob caught him with some really, really good shots as well. But enough about that. Let's get on this card. And let's talk about Derek Brunson versus Kevin Holland straight away, because I want to see your prediction for this and how you think it's going to go down. Obviously, some absolute killers. Kevin Holland with the hype train of the year for 2020. Some fantastic wins. One of the first ever knockouts from the bottom position as well. Obviously knocked out Joaquin Buckley with a little quick pop, 1-2. He looked phenomenal last year, right? But So does Brunson. Brunson is a very, very good elite fighter. Tell me how you think it's going down.
Oh, so this is actually one of in the last while, I can't think of a fight that has been a little bit more tougher to pick than this one. And purely based off of the fact that Derek Brunson can be a grinding wrestler. And that's, I think, one of the things that's really slept on here, more so than his striking. You know, Derek Brunson's got, I would say he hasn't got the best of striking in terms of like technical, you know, in that frame of the way that striking is kind of perceived. But he does good striking enough to really like implement his wrestling. And I think that's one of the things that's really going to be a telltale sign here in the first half of the round. If Derek Brunson's able to get him pressed up against the cage, maybe secure a takedown, or at least have him threatened with multiple takedowns, I think Kevin Holland's going to be very hesitant to throw kicks, which is one of the things he's very well known for, obviously, with his like karate, taekwondo kind of background. Kicks are a massive part of that game. And if Derek is able to take him down off of a kick, that's really going to shut down a lot of what Kevin Holland's game is about. Does Kevin Holland still have amazing hands? Absolutely. And I think that will definitely pay dividends here. Who do I have as a prediction, man? Oh, man, I've actually been sweating this all day thinking about this. I'm going to go Derek Brunson by decision, man. And it hurts me to say that because I love Kevin Holland. I love what he's about. I love the attitude. I love his style. His striking style is fantastic as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Holland managed to KO him. One of the things that I mentioned beforehand is Kevin Holland isn't like a brutal knockout artist, but he is one of the best counter strikers in that division. And Derek Brunson's known for wading into shots. So I really wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Holland, I'm kind of sitting on the fence here a little bit, but I'm going to say that Derek Brunson, I'm going to say Derek Brunson by decision. I think he's going to wrestle fuck him for 5 rounds. I think he's going to make him exhausted. I think he's going to get to the end of the 4th round. He might even secure a TKO win like late in the fight, 4th, 5th round, from making Kevin Holland exhausted. One of the things that I don't think Kevin's been really tested in is his cardio, being pressured constantly, being on the back foot. He is a counter striker, so he does play a lot of that off of the game. But when you're mixing in the wrestling, I don't think he's really fought a wrestler quite like Derek Brunson that is able to have that much control over him. Brunson by decision here for me anyway.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
I don't know, man. Like you say, it's a tough one to call. There's some, Kevin Holland blew up through the rankings as well. Beating some very, very good names and some legends, unfortunately. But coming through the way he has done and having as many fights as he did, I think he's going to want to come out and the pressure is on, quite heavily built on both of these guys. Brunson's going to come in and he's obviously doesn't want to get beaten by a guy that's 3 above him. But the Trailblazer is going to want to make some real noise and put himself in that top 5. So I think he's going to piece him up on the feet. Like you say, I think he's going to work the legs as well. The calf kicks, the undeniably amazing calf kicks are going to be a part of his game as well. I think he pieces him up on the feet. And then I'm thinking a late KO, TKO, maybe, or even a submission, maybe a late in the game submission, 3rd or 4th round sub. Because
like that,
he's got this. He's also got an what I write down, 81-inch reach to Derek Brunson's 77. So he's going to have the distance on him anyway. 4 inches. Yeah. In the fight game, it's not a mad amount, but he will still be able to flick him on the end of the punches without getting scathed too much. But very, very long-limbed as well. Long-legged Mac Daddy, I think is the way to put it. So when they get on the ground, if it does go to the ground, is he going to be able to, sit in a rubber guard and then perhaps, foot on the hip, twist himself around, maybe catch an arm bar or a triangle, something like that, triangle from the bottom? I don't know. I'm really thinking about this. Really thinking about late sub.
I was just going to say that Kevin Holland trains with, it's something I picked up on Aerial Show, actually, funnily enough. He said that Kevin Holland actually trains out of a predominantly jiu-jitsu camp, and that his head trainer is a guy called Travis Luter, who is one of the better BJJ mixed martial artists that were from back in the day. So who's a very, very high level black belt. And I remember when Holland was fighting Jacare, he wasn't actually even remotely fazed by Jacare's jiu-jitsu, which is the number one thing that everyone craps their pants out when they know they're about to fight Jacare. But he's got good jiu-jitsu. We haven't seen a lot of it. I think it does make a difference here a little bit.
Definitely, especially if Brunson's going to go for a wrestling kind of style and try and, like you say, wrestle fuck him. Wrestlers are very, very good until you hit the mat and they've got pinned your shoulders, and then they're like, well, what do I do now? And unless they've got that kind of BJJ acumen behind them. So I'm really going to lean towards a late submission here. And then the co-main is a fight that you were very interested in, right? So obviously we haven't seen Gregor Gillespie since he got sent to the Shadow Realm a little while ago by Kevin Lee. Was it Kevin Lee?
Kevin Lee, man.
Yeah,
Kevin Lee
sending
head
it to the
kicked his
Shadow Realm.
life away.
Obviously he just split himself. I don't know if he was trying to like jackknife himself to like duck over something, or I don't know where. He almost headbutted his shin. I don't know why he did it. You know, I would have just moved out the way. It would have been easier. But tell me, why do you like this fight so much, man?
Both are absolute beasts. I think they both come to fight with a heavy, heavy pressure style. Both Brad Riddell and Gregor Gillespie are both pressure style fighters. So I think it's going to be one of those ones where they meet in the middle, and then no one's going to give an inch, and they're going to be throwing hammers at each other. Gregor Gillespie is a very I wouldn't say I was about to say he's an underrated wrestler. He is pretty much predominantly known for his wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, I know his credentials within wrestling, I'm not too sure of. Being British, obviously, we don't have as much of the information when it comes to like NCAA and things like that. And I can see that he was an NCAA Division I wrestling champion at 149 pounds. And I know that goes a lot, because I know Brock Lesnar I think he's won it a few times or something like that. And that's why he's always credentialed as one of the better wrestlers out there and things like that. So, wow. Okay. That definitely throws a spanner into the works there, because I do see maybe Gregor Gillespie being able to take Brad Riddell down and maybe control him a little bit here. And I think coming off of a brutal KO loss like he did, he's not going to want to come in there and test his chin, so to speak, right? Test his chin in the sense that he's going to want to be like, if he's in the pocket with Brad Riddell, he's going to maybe want to slip out of the way, knowing that, 7 hammers are about to come his way. So, wow, that does actually kind of throw a wrench into the works there, because I actually thought that Brad Riddell was going to kind of ace this a little bit and just kind of put the pressure on, hit him with big shots, and hopefully get the finish, or to get a very, close decision, or something like that. But I'm going to have to go with my Derek Brunson 2.0 here and say that Gregor Gillespie is about to, I hope Brad Riddell has his wrestling shoes on and his headgear on, because he's about to do a lot of wrestling. Saturday night. Gregor Gillespie by decision all day here then.
Nice one, man. Nice one. Obviously,
just with the credentials, I think the credentials within the wrestling is what kind of elevates him to that point. And again, I think the juxtaposition of coming off of that KO loss is going to play a big, big part into that. You look at a lot of these guys that take a brutal KO loss, they come in and play a safe game the next time. I'm sure the next time after that, he's going to feel a lot more confident, maybe come out with a bit more of a striking style. But I feel like it's one of those ones where like he needs to get the W back. He needs to get the win in his column. And this is the way he's going to do it. He's going to use the best tool in his back pocket. You can't fault the guy for using the best tool in his pocket. But at the same time, maybe is it not going to be the most aesthetically pleasing to all of us? Probably not. It's going to be a chess match. It's going to be close. And I think Brad Riddell has got enough within himself to be able to get out of some of these positions here. But I think it's the actual physically taking him down part that is going to suck for him. I don't think maybe Gregor Gillespie has the control to keep him there. But I think if he's able to just take Brad Riddell down loads and loads and loads, that's one of those things that really breaks the will of a fighter, right? So you look at Khabib against Edson Barbosa. You got Edson Barbosa looking over there somewhere, and that's because he's just been taken down for the 15th time in the first round. So I expect it to be a lot like that.
Absolutely, man. I completely agree with you, especially the mental implications of coming off such a historic knockout almost. It kind of puts you in a bad position, and maybe he's probably going to look back at the tape of that fight and think, maybe I was throwing too much. Maybe I wasn't relying on my wrestling enough. And people genuinely, they want to catch that W straight afterwards, because it's not that they've got something to prove, but they just want to prove that they're not as careless or reckless as their previous knockout. But another knockout artist on the card, is tied to Ivasa, who is on the Coco main. But this guy obviously he got dropped from the UFC, right? Dropped from the UFC because he took a couple of just terrible losses. And all of a sudden they want these fighters back in the heavyweight division. He's young enough to still be throwing hands for another couple of years. And I don't know, with a nickname like Bam Bam and doing the shoey and stuff like that, it's cool. It kind of gets the crowd going. Is there going to be a crowd? There isn't going to be one. Obviously, we saw him when he was when he was on Fight Island, and someone threw him a shoe, and then they said, we couldn't get any beers in, mate. We couldn't get any beers in. They wouldn't let us. I thought that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen, man. I mean, he was just so disappointed. He was like, what am I going to do with a shoe? And then just threw it back out to his buddy, man. That really, really got me. But I don't know, man. I've said this 1,000 times. I don't like these heavyweights that come in. And, you know, if Taito Ivasa was to really put the work in, he could be a 205er. And he could look good as a 205er. Why are you sitting at 265 and you have to cut? You know, he doesn't look like he'd have the cardio to last a 5-round fight. So what's his longevity in the fight game? Is he going to come up against one of the top 5 heavyweights? Imagine him versus Ngannou. You know what I mean? Or imagine him versus, say he wins this and then they're like, okay, cool, let's stick him in with John Jones, who's coming up to heavyweight. You couldn't even picture it, because there's no point. There's no point in even picturing him against the top people in the division, him against Curtis Blade, Derek Lewis, Stipe. You couldn't see Taito Ivasa in any of these positions. What do you think?
Yep. I agree. I agree 100%. I think he has pretty much. Is there a number below 0 wrestling? I think maybe -1 wrestling, -100 wrestling. I think that's
rugby. You think he'd be all right at mild wrestling, you know, coming in and shooting for something.
And I think that's kind of been his Achilles heel. He's fallen in love with the hands, right? He wants to be Mark Hunt 2.0, and I think that is what's led him to a lot of these the not so successful outings against, you know, he's lost to JDS, he's lost to Blagoy Ivanov, who I think they're two of the more, you know, in terms of the heavyweight division, I would say they're in the upper side of the heavyweight division. But he's also got a loss against Sergey Spivak, who I feel is very much a journeyman fighter, ups and downs, losses, wins, all over the gaff. And to take a loss like that to him, I think really, really showed that his acumen on the ground is just not there. And I think that's probably ultimately why he got let go of the UFC, and not too sure why he got rehired. I would imagine, we were talking about this before we jumped on the podcast here, and I know that he is a big star out in Australia. I have a friend who I used to work with who is from kind of that same area as Taito Ivasa, grew up in that same area that he did grow up in. And he was telling me that, like, he used to play mad rugby league matches and just go out into the parking lot and just start scrapping with people. And that was just kind of his mentality all the time. And that's what ultimately led him to becoming a UFC fighter. So I know he's a big deal out in Australia. I wouldn't say he's a big deal out in Australia, but he is well recognized and well loved. And I think it's because he is very much a representation of Australia, right? The shoey and the attitude and the swearing and that kind of side of things, which is, you know, maybe not for everyone, but I think the Australian people kind of dig his vibe. And I think that's what's kind of brought him back here, because one of the other things we were talking about is, you know, when the world opens up again and they go over to Australia and New Zealand and things like that, they're going to need those guys to fill in those cards so they can represent their hometown, they can represent their home countries and prove that the oceanic side of MMA is very, very good. You know, he's coming off, and the other thing as well is he fought on Fight Island. He fought against Stefan Struve. He's got a KO win over him. I wouldn't say that that's something to write home to mum about.
Who hasn't got a KO win over Stefan Struve? You know, the guy's recently retired because he's got too much CTE.
But he's broken his losing streak. That's kind of the point I wanted to make there. He broke his, you know, I think we were talking about just now, Greg Gillespie, right? He has you know, the mindset of coming off of a devastating KO loss like that and to get the win afterwards, I think is something that plays in all of these guys' minds. And I think and the important thing for it is to get them off of potentially having a losing streak, having, you know, a win changes their perspective, changes their confidence, changes their motivation. And I think maybe after taking a KO win over Stefan Struve, that has allowed him to really get remotivated. Hopefully he comes in a little bit leaner. Like you said, like guys that are cutting to get to 265 is it's actually so backwards. I understand if you're 6'8" or 6'7" and your general build of yourself is massive and you have to cut down because of that, you know, e.g. like a Derek Lewis, right? Derek Lewis is, I wouldn't say he's in his like 6'6", 6'7". You know, generally the person of that size is going to, you know, Stefan Struve is like what, 6'10" or something like that. He was never like a big, yeah, but he was never a big guy, like a fat guy. He was always a really lean guy, but he also used to cut down to get to 265 as well. And that's a frame issue more so than a weight management issue or a discipline issue, like that kind of thing. I would love to see him go on a streak here. And I love the attitude as well. I think it's funny. I'm not a particularly extroverted human being, and I feel like, you know, Tai Tuivasa is like the epitome of a very extroverted human being. So from that perspective, I actually I enjoy it. I enjoy the banter. I enjoy the shoey. Yeah, I think it's disgusting, but, you know, do what you got to do, kid, kind of thing. Does Tai Tuivasa beat Dontel Mays? I would say that Dontel Mays is not like the biggest name in the division. You know, he's got a couple wins, couple losses. He did well on the Contender Series. I know Dontel Mays did well on the Dana White Contender Series, and that led him into the UFC. Took a couple of losses, got one win back. But I see Tai Tuivasa just kind of, I think maybe Dontel Mays will try to circle out the power of Tai Tuivasa. And I'm hoping that Tai has, you know, really added some skills to his arsenal and is able to kind of catch him with something that will surprise him, get a big knockout win. That would be really awesome to see. I think if he takes another loss here, Tai Tuivasa is looking at, you know, in his last 4 fights, he's won one and in his last 5 fights, he's lost 4 and won 1. And that would be devastating to his career. So I do hope he gets the win. Nothing on Dontel Mays. I don't know a particularly huge amount about this gentleman. So I'll root for Tai Tuivasa. Heart says Tai Tuivasa, head says Dontel Mays.
Yeah, it's always the ones you don't know too much about, and then they come out and go, okay, yeah, I'll remember him for next time.
Yeah. We're going to be recording this on Sunday, and I'm going to be like, damn, Dontel Mays, eh?
What a guy. He's, you know, 10-time collegiate NCAA wrestler. Like, he's an absolute machine. You just never knew. Yeah. You never knew. But there's another fight on the prelims, actually, that I'm quite interested in, with is the Grant Dawson fight. This guy is 16-1. He's, you know, I've seen him in some real bangers over the past couple of years. And you said he was coming up against a guy that is an absolute monster, right, in Leonardo Santos. But yeah, I'm excited about this fight, man. I like Grant Dawson. I think he's a killer in this division as well, and very underrated fighter. To see he's not even the featured prelim, is he? He's quite a little bit way down the prelims. So I was very surprised. Maybe the UFC are kind of pitching up these cards so they're kind of, here's a name you don't know, but then, oh, look at this, stay interested. Do you know what I mean? They want to keep the people watching and keep people interested. And I think this would be a banger of a fight. How do you see it going down?
I would not be surprised if either one of these two gentlemen end up in the Dana White people you may need to know, or people you should know.
If you don't know,
those little YouTube clips.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if these two, either both of these gentlemen or just one of these gentlemen, end up in this mix here. I'm going to talk a little bit more on the Leonardo Santos side of things. I know Grant Dawson. I know he's a powerful wrestler. He's got great submissions. He's had a couple of TKO and KO wins. You know, that is a hallmark of a fantastic fighter, that they're diverse with their winning ways. They're not just winning a bunch of decisions. You know, he's going in and pressing for the submission. He's going in and pressing for the knockout. So always my favorite kind of fighter. They're actually going out there and scrapping to win, not just scrapping for the sake of scrapping to get a dub on the record. Yeah, Leonardo Santos, man, I have big admiration for this guy. And I think he is a very, very underrated guy in the featherweight division, featherweight division. And then now consequently in the lightweight division as well. Man, this guy's winning record is ridiculous. I'm actually, I off the top of my head, I can't say it. So I'm just going to rattle through here. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, right? 14 fights, 13 wins, 1 draw out of that. which is insane to me, right? That is an insane record. And not just like decision wins or submission wins. He's got KO wins. He's got a KO over Kevin Lee. He KO'd Kevin Lee, who is one of the better lightweights out there. You know, Greg Gillespie will know and will vouch for that Kevin Lee is one of the better lightweights out there. And he's got a KO win over Stevie Ray as well, who's a very much an incredible British fighter, one that we all have love for, Braveheart. And he got a KO win over Stevie Ray as well. So man, he has always been a sneaky underrated guy. He is the weird thing about Leonardo Santos is that he is 41 years old.
Wow.
I don't know if you knew that.
I thought it was like 39. I thought 30, 38, 39, but 41,
he's 41 years old, going in against Grant Dawson, who is 27 years old.
I was going to say back into the 20s, yeah.
Yeah. So from that perspective, it's, if you were to just look at that on a piece of paper, you go, okay, Grant Dawson's got this all day. He's fighting an old man. He's going to smash him, right?
Yeah.
That is not the case, man. He's going in against a guy who is very experienced. He is a 4th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. I know he is one of Jose Aldo's premier training partners, maybe even I would say his Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach. Don't quote me on that. But I know he works with those Nova União guys, and he is a staple of that Nova União guys. One of the other things that's really notable for me when I look at Leonardo Santos's record is that he's only ever really fought maybe like once a year, twice a year. So he doesn't have like the most... he hasn't got the most amount of like back-to-back wins, the momentum that keeps him going, but he still comes back and gets a knockout win. There's between two of his fights in, so not in his most recent fight, but the two before that, he fought one in 2016 and then the next one in 2019. In the 2016, he won a split decision. And in 2019, he won by KO. So like, I feel like a lot of the rhetorics of these things are not really, these are the things that most fighters will kind of complain about, right? Or they'll show like, these are the flaws that a fighter has. But, even at 41 years old, this guy's coming in and knocking people out, or 40 years old or 39 years old against 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds. I would imagine that the reason for a lot of those big absences are probably injuries, rehabbing those injuries, coming back, but also maybe, wanting to add skills to his game already as well, and wanting to make leaps and bounds and improvements. You look at the guys between 2016 and 2019, MMA is a completely different sport in terms of like the level of fighter, the aggressiveness of a fighter, the techniques. So he's having to take maybe the injuries, come back with different skill sets or different techniques that have allowed him to come in and still do work, which is amazing to see at the age of 41, man. So for that reason alone, I am rooting the hell out of Leonardo Santos. Come and win it for the old men.
That's it, man. That's it. And sometimes, injuries do put these fighters out for such a long time. As we saw with Dominic Cruz last weekend, he was out for, what did he have, like 2 fights in the space of 5 years? Plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, man.
And it's like, he's still such a well-known man in the division because he's still around the division, and he was, he's arguably one of the best fighters, pound for pound fighters ever. So to have so much time out is obviously very, very detrimental to his career and to his legacy, but he physically couldn't fight. Do you know what I mean? So it's a nightmare.
Yeah, and a lot of the guys will talk about ring rust and things of that nature. It doesn't appear that this gentleman is really even fazed by ring rust. So that's really awesome to see. It hasn't been too much of a long break. His July last year was his last win. He won by decision. I think that he can kind of pressure him a little bit. Grant Dawson's quick as well, and I think that's going to pay dividends for him. He's ultimately going to be very much faster than Leonardo Santos. I think Leonardo Santos is going to make a lot of really, really clutch decision making in the cage there. I think that he's going to need to like jump into a lot of stuff, like jump guard, jump into a guillotine, jump into a flying triangle to really get a win here. But I like an underdog story. So let's see what you got, Leonardo Santos. 41 years old, man. If he pulls this out against a 27-year-old, man, he'll be in my crush corner forever. Along with him and Dominic Cruz, we'll just have a 2-seat crush corner and live there forever.
That's it, man. They got permanent residency.
He deserves it, man. 41 years old and he gets a win, man. that, I mean, my rinky-dink opinion doesn't really matter to Leonardo Santos. But if you see this and you win, man, you'll have my respect for the rest of my life.
Even if he doesn't win, he's still got respect. You've got respect for going out there and being a gladiator, man.
every single one of these guys. I hate to see that. Oh my God, I feel like an asshole saying that, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm with you. There's another fight on the cards, a female fight, one of the women's MMA bouts. Marion Renault, I believe, is how you'd pronounce it, versus, go on, you're going to go with the surname of this other lady because it's...
So it's Macy Chierson.
Chierson. Where's she from?
That's how I'm thinking. I think she's American. I want to say she's American.
One of these American Italians that has got that crazy, like Luis Pena is Italian, but the guy's never been to Italy. I swear to God. But I believe Marion Renault looked very, very good last time out. If my memory is right, last time I saw her out, she looked very, very good. Was it the beginning of the year or end of last year? When was she last? When was she last in the cage?
So I'm looking at Marion Renault's neck rod now, and you're gonna have to eat a little bit of humble soup here, my friend. She has three losses on the trot.
Yeah.
So the first one of those coming against Kat Zingano, Yana Kunitskaya, and Raquel Pennington. Raquel Pennington being the last one. 3
absolute killers.
Yep.
When we look at some of the fighters that are, Darren Till, for instance, you look at his losses and look, he's got 2 or 3 losses in a row. But then you look again and you go, all right, it was Jorge Masvidal, it was against Rob Whittaker, and it was against Tyron Woodley. So it's like, okay, cool. The guy's had a couple of losses, but they've been to very, very good fighters. So the last one out was Raquel Pennington. Was that it was a decision, wasn't it? She lost.
Yeah. Unanimous decision. I think Raquel just kind of controlled her. Yeah. I think that's the story of any kind of Raquel Pennington fight. It's very gritty, very very wrestling heavy, maybe a few little bit of striking here and there. I know Renault is more of a jiu-jitsu kind of gal as opposed to a striker or a wrestler or anything like that. There's another, this is another mad age gap. I don't know if you've done the research in this side of things. Macy's at 29 years old. And Marion Renault is at 43 years old. Yeah, absolutely killer. Yeah. I love it. And she's number 9th in the division as well. Yeah. Like that is inspirational for a young girl looking at someone like that. That is something that's so inspirational to see. And even to a lady that might be a little bit later in her life as well, like to see someone that's still at that age, able to go with people that are, in their prime, 29, 30, 31. Like that's the prime of a fighter, I would say for the most part. Damn. I give you mad respect for Marion Renault. Although I will say that if she does lose this fight, she will probably go from the UFC.
Yeah, man. It's more than likely.
4 in a row.
Yeah, 4 in a row.
It's unfortunate because, again, that's someone that people will root for. That's someone that's inspirational to people. And that's someone that people can really get behind. But taking 4 losses in a row like that, all against decisions, might not look like that good of a night for her. And I think, this might be a little bit of a toss-up fight for Macy. Exactly. It seems like Macy's kind of on the rise here. 6-1. She's coming off of a decision win. She's held a couple of TKO wins in her record. I know she used to fight at featherweight and then she dropped down to bantamweight now. So obviously retains a lot of that power. I know she's quite tall as well for the division. She's 5'9". Average height of these bantamweight fighters is 5'5", 5'6". So, she's a little bit taller than them. She'll have the reach on her and things like that as well. So, I would say that maybe Macy will probably take this. I don't know if she'll KO her. I would say maybe it's either going to be a late KO or a decision.
I want to see Marion Renault turn back the clock here, because sometimes when we see these setup fights, for people like Macy against an older lady or something. We saw it when Macy Barber went up against Roxanne Modafferi. What did we see then? We saw Macy Barber get her ass handed to her and she ultimately lost the fight. But that was supposed to be a setup fight. That was a layup for her just to go in and score the dunk. Do you know what I mean? But it wasn't. They have to have respect for these older fighters that have been in the game for such a long time, man. But imagine the mental kind of side of these things with Marion Renault going into this bout. She's got three straight losses against absolute killers. We cannot take away that they are absolute killing women in the divisions, and she's got to go out there and get this dub, man. 4 in a row, you've got to go. That should be the kind of phrase that sits on these fights, man. But fingers crossed she can turn it back.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's one of. I think that's going to be one of those. I think. Who in your opinion do you think is going to be the fight of the night here? I feel like it's either going to be one of two. It's either going to be obviously the Derek Brunson fight, or I feel like Leonardo Santos versus Grant Dawson might be one of the fight of the nights.
Yeah, either that or maybe even the Tuivasa bout. I think he's just going to go out there and try and throw hands. Yeah, Gillespie, Riddell, maybe. But wasn't there a Chinese gentleman that you were talking about that's got quite a good solid record?
Yeah. So as we kind of round the podcast here, there are two other fighters that I wanted to highlight a little bit more. The first one being Song Kenan. Song Kenan has a 15-5 record. He's coming off of a KO win over Callan Potter, who is a New Zealand fighter. I think this is a little bit of a layup fight for Song Kenan here. He's fighting Max Griffin, who I believe had his first fight in the UFC against Colby Covington. So no easy fights for Max Griffin here. He's fought, Mike Perry, another top-ranked fighter. He's got a win over Mike Perry, which is obviously speaks. I don't know if it speaks volumes now, but maybe at the time it spoke volumes. But my guy here has had such a up and down record here. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fights in the UFC, and 6 of them are losses, 4 of them are wins. So I expect Song Kenan to come out here and really, really put it on Max Griffin and look to get him out of there. Does he do that? I'm not too sure, but I think Song Kenan can really put the pressure on and get a good victory here. The other one I really wanted to highlight, which is on the prelims, is Julia Avila versus, oh my God, I'm not even going to attempt this young lady's last name, Storyenko. I don't know why, but I'm just feeling Emelianenko, but that's just, I think I'm just so used to seeing Fedor's name all over the place. Julia Avila, man, she is one of those up and comers in the division. I know Dana White absolutely loves this lady. She has a really good attitude to fighting, and she comes out and she comes to scrap, man. She comes to scrap. She's got a couple KO wins, TKO wins. In the women's divisions where you don't predominantly see a lot of finishes. You see a lot of, big shots and things like that, but you don't necessarily see a lot of finishes. It's good to see a woman going out there and really, fighting to win, fighting to finish, fighting to get the other person out of there, as opposed to just getting a dub for their record. I feel like she's very visceral when she jumps into the cage. She seems like a really nice person. She seems like a bloody science teacher. And then she gets into the cage and she's a killer. She's screaming. She's visceral. Like, I love that. I love that side of, that's some of the side of fighting that really interests me. The mindset that goes into once you step into that cage and they close the door behind you and you almost become a different person. She is definitely the epitome of turning into a different person. So very much looking forward to that fight. Do I have a person that I'm favoring? I'm going to say Julia Avila in that first one. In the second one. In the first one, I'm going to say Song Kenan. Song Kenan's probably going to win by KO, and Julia here is probably going to win to a decision. As much as I just said that she's a TKO, she's probably going to win by decision here.
She goes out there, she knocks people out, but she's going to get the split decision here on the weekend.
Not a split decision. It's going to be unanimous.
Okay. No, there's some fantastic fights coming up, and obviously the announcement of Usman versus Jorge Masvidal 2 is something that we are extremely excited about as well. And there is, in my opinion, some better fights on there with the return of Weili Zhang and Rose Namajunas as well. And then Shevchenko's on that fight as well, no?
Shevchenko is fighting Jessica Andrade.
Yeah, I mean, that should be main and co-main, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? Usman and Masvidal, they've already been at it. And what did we see? We saw 85 significant strikes being foot stomps. I appreciate it's going to be the money fight, but there's better division, in my opinion, to be fighting against, especially for a second time. Wonder Boy, Chiesa. There's other fighters in there that he can. The Colby Covington fight was fantastic. It was a fantastic first fight between him and Usman. I don't know why they're not running that back instead. We're going to have to see Colby Covington fight someone at some point. He can't just keep, dancing around.
It's because Colby Covington's an asshole, and I'm sure he is the worst person to negotiate with. I'm sure he makes life so difficult to negotiate with. There's another fight that actually got announced for this. There's a couple of really good fights that have been announced for this card.
Solid card.
Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Crute. I think that's a fantastic fight. Jimmy Crute was originally supposed to fight Johnny Walker, and now Anthony got injured. Anthony Smith stepped in. Big props to him because it's one of those fights where the upside against the downside is not really there for him, as opposed to Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute, gets a win over Anthony Smith, former title challenger. So that could be a big stepping stone for Jimmy Crute. Chris Weidman against Uriah Hall.
Well.
Yeah. I think Anthony Smith has lost the last few. Another one that's really good on this card is Chris Weidman versus Uriah Hall 2. Not many people know that. That's actually the second fight. They fought back in the day in Ring of Combat or one of those other promotions. Chris Weidman getting a easy unanimous decision over Uriah Hall back in the day. So let's hope that they're both the stars have changed very much over the years. So I'm interested to see what happens there. And the last one I really love here is Brendan Allen versus Carl Robertson. Nice. I think that is a fantastic bout. Brendan Allen is a surging middleweight who has got a lot of potential, incredible jiu-jitsu. I'm really, really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, and I think Hakeem Daoud has also been pitched up, hasn't he? He's fighting in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I saw that on Marcel Dorf put that out the other day.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
Great fights, man. Great fights.
Yeah,
this summer looks like it's going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, and we're not even at International Fight Week yet. Imagine what that's going to look like in the next couple of months, man.
Not even in April. Crazy.
Oh, man. I thought March was big, but March is huge and is going to be huge. Yeah. Obviously, we've got some absolute phenomenal fights coming up over the next couple of weeks, and I'm just so excited to break them down. Do you know what I mean? It's so nice to talk about fighting and talk about fighting with the eloquent analyst who is always on point with the numbers. Do you know what I mean? But
thank you, man.
Thank you very much for joining into the Fight and Talk 2 channel. If you've enjoyed our episode, hit like, hit subscribe, tell your friends, your friends' cousins, mothers, brothers, aunties, sisters, dog to tell their owner. And I think it's becoming scripted now. That's the only thing I can think of.
Every single time has been different and I respect it.
We're over on Spotify as well, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts as well. So we're on all listening outlets, and leave us a review and put some comments in. I know some people throw some comments in. We always appreciate that, and we try to reply to as many as possible, or all of them. There's not that many. So until next time, we'll be breaking down this fight to see if the Golden Oldies can catch the wins at the weekend, and we'll be with you next week. Thank you very much.
Come on, Santos, you got this, brother.